Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 1. It's called Redemption 2. Not Part 2, just got the Roman numerals 2. It's very classy. So, yes, full spoilers for the episode, as always. We had the game-changing cliffhanger at the end of the Season 4 finale of someone who appeared to be Tasha Yar, but with Romulan ears. We'll get into the explanation behind that in a minute.
I would like a congratulations for calling it correctly.
I don't remember.
That's all I'm saying. There is video evidence, so it's fine.
It didn't even occur to me when they actually said it in the episode. It didn't come across to me as I've heard this theory. I never even thought. I just went, oh, okay, that's interesting.
It is not my responsibility to ensure that you listen to me, because you don't have to listen to me. That's fine. But I said it. It is there. It is on record.
You take credit if you want it. I am not particularly fussed. Yeah. Well, I was going to list other things that the episode did, but you had to insist on taking your credit immediately. So I guess we're talking about this now.
I didn't say what it was. We can come back to it.
No, we're not. We'll spend enough time on it now. It was meant to be a quick summary list, and you ruined it. You ruined it because you're the worst. So now, we're just on it.
But I am the worst who was correct.
What's that? Broken clock, something, twice a day. So, basically, Tasha from yesterday's Enterprise, the one who's in the alternate future, well, I say future, alternate present, but future from the perspective of the moment of correction. What do you mean age?
Change, yeah.
Oh, I said age. Yes.
No.
So we know she gets sent back, and to seemingly, on this suicide mission to die in this defense of this planet, and turns out the Romulans took some prisoners. Not everyone died who was on that previous Enterprise, and the theory in this episode is that she is this Romulan specifically is the daughter of that Tasha, is the Tasha from an alternate timeline's daughter. But the Romulan who's the father is not from an alternate timeline. He is very much at the same timeline because it's before the timelines diverged. Well, I suppose technically that's not true. Well, kind of is. Honestly, it's actually really confusing as to what timelines do. I'd have to go back and watch this Enterprise.
It's a bit of a paradox in the sense that by sending them back, the timelines never split apart in the first place.
Yes. Yeah, she's kind of an anomaly. She's like a miracle child. She's kind of an evil John Connor in a lot of ways. So that is the idea behind Sela, as we find out her name is that she Tasha is dead. When she explains all this backstory, when Picard finally gets to meet her, and she talks about how my father, who was a Romulan, took a liking to her, I thought, oh god, Tasha didn't have a great, because she had this kind of heroic, okay, I'm going to go down with this ship, I'm accepting death, I'm going to go be a hero, to find out that she survived and then was enslaved into a forced marriage and tried to escape with her child, only for her child to intentionally betray her, and then she get executed for it. Kind of shits all over her heroic exit.
It's better death than by puddle, though.
It's better than by puddle, but it left it in this kind of noble kind of sacrifice moment, and then it adds all this misery to it. Like, she went through all this shit after that before she finally died. It's a little bit mean, I would say. It's a bit cruel. So, and I don't know if ultimately, I don't think that was the intent of the writing here. The writing here was about just trying to justify why we have this actress as a Romulan so we can do some interesting stuff now. But in order to accomplish that, they had to make Tasha's, alternate Tasha's final years seemingly, horrible.
Yeah.
So that is a weird, interesting choice. I said in the season 4 finale that I couldn't imagine a way of them to explain it where I wouldn't think it was a little forced and hilarious. I will say this is probably the most interesting path they could have taken. I don't know if it alleviates my chuckles at the concept entirely. I will say though, this way I did like the reactions of Picard. I like Guinan's kind of like intuition as to she kind of understands. She doesn't really know why she understands or how she understands, but that that harkens back to Jesse's Enterprise, because she was the one who kind of had that knowing experience that the timeline had changed, and she kind of met Tasha that way. And in fact, probably one of my favorite moments of this whole episode is when Guinan is trying to tell Picard that she has this vague feeling about who this is and what's going on, that you sent her back on that Enterprise. Picard, like, uncharacteristically, almost gets a little bit stern and says, "You never met Tasha. You came to this ship a year," and it sounds kind of, harsh when he says it, and it feels like he's really sort of lashing out at this crazy idea he's hearing. He can't comprehend it.
Part of it is denial as well, because he doesn't want to be responsible for having caused this, presumably.
And there's a little bit of that. I don't think that's super strong necessarily, just because it's such an alien idea. It's like, no, I didn't. I know I didn't. Like,
I'm sure that's there too. Yeah.
This didn't happen. What are you talking about? But of course, we're dealing with science fiction, and they've not been through a lot of weird shit anyway. So he has to at least comprehend the possibility that this happened. I did like though that the others, I think Crusher and Troy, after they first see her, and they're theorizing exactly, because they say, "Oh, maybe she's a clone. Maybe she, engineered someone's face to look like Tasha to mess with us," but then someone says, "Well, she does believe she's Tasha's child," and I'm glad, because it didn't take that long really, but it felt like an eternity before someone finally said, "Wait, she's the same age as Tasha was. She would be like 4 when she gave birth if this is actually Tasha's kid," unless of course we're dealing with alternate timeline, but they don't know that yet. So I was glad when Picard finally says, "Well, this doesn't really matter though, because Tasha would have been a child."
Yeah, it kind of doesn't really line up with, standard reality.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't deny I was not entertained throughout most of this stuff in the episode. It's not resolved by the end of the episode by any means. This character of Sela is still out there. We're going to see her again, presumably.
I think it's quite interesting as an episode in general, in that sense that there is some stuff with some resolution, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, it kind of just feels very open-ended by the end of this episode, which is unusual for the start of a season compared to the end.
Of Trek, yeah, of Next Gen specifically, yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say, for most shows, it's actually very normal for the first episode to
I mean, it is these days, yeah.
Open. And it's usually the finales that have a bit more closure, typically.
It is these days, but that's not how it used to work.
Yeah, so intriguing, and I think the reactions to the other characters and their grounded reactions to things were by far the best part of it. It is a bit of a stunt still. Like, I don't know if I necessarily like the writer's choice of doing this at all. It feels a little bit like shock value for the sake of shock value right now.
There's an element of the cynicism. It was like they did this because, that'll boost up some ratings.
I mean, were they struggling for ratings at this time? I don't
know, but producers always want more.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this was a case of the actress just wanted to come back and they try to find something for her. Maybe this was just a crazy idea they had. Because maybe there's an end goal in mind here. Maybe there's they've got some grand story to tell with this character, and it'll all be deserving of what we're going through to get to that point. But right now, other than the reactions of the characters in this episode, which admittedly were entertaining and like good moments for those other characters, I don't see why having this Tasha-related character as this Romulan, rather than just a new Romulan character who we can introduce as a new villain and really focus on as the face of the Romulans for us.
Out of interest, do you think I don't want to use the word bothering you, but just it's kind of affecting your immersion, I guess. So, because you're aware of it's just this actress, and that you're thinking of how have they, is it her wanting to come back? Are they wanting to write a reason for her? Do you think it would kind of affect it less in that sense if it had just been the exact same character, the exact same idea, but just a different actress, and you still played it as no, it's her daughter still from that timeline, but just she doesn't look identical.
But we didn't do the Back to the Future thing where people are playing their own kids and so on.
Yes.
Honestly, I think it would be better. I think because then it would be a genuine twist when it comes up that she's Tasha's daughter, and then when they try to explain how Tasha has a daughter that's like an adult, it's like, oh, that's actually quite an interesting idea. But this way around, it feels like they've had to try and like retroactively think of a way to justify it. And again, maybe they've got some crazy idea where they want to do with this character. It's important that she is Tasha's daughter, and it's important. But yeah, I think fundamentally I agree with the notion that I would prefer this to be a different actress, and for the revelation of who she is and who she's related to because see if we didn't know that. See if she just said that in the scene, right? So instead of like Picard recognizing and going, Tasha, right? And then her going, no, the woman you knew as Tasha was my mother. Just rewrite that to him starting the conversation and her just intentionally going out of her way to say, and by the way, I'm Tasha Yar's daughter. Cut feed. Like, that could have been a moment. And we'd be like, wait, what?
Because I think the problem is, with it being this same actress, we're immediately like, well, yeah, sure, of course. There's no doubt in our minds.
Yes.
Especially as we're aware of, the alternate timeline, which most of our characters are not. So when they're kind of going through the motions here, going, how can this possibly be true? Is it even physically possible in any way? We're kind of way ahead of them. We're already at, yeah, it's just the one you sent back. But I wonder if it had been someone with enough family resemblance, but someone different, we'd be questioning it a bit more, going, is she really? Is it? Could it be?
Make no mistake, I actually really love the idea of a remnant of another timeline affecting things, in this case a character going forward, that most of our characters don't actually know anything about and have a hard time believing. I don't think it's a problem that we are ahead of them in that sense. I actually think that's really fascinating. You can't do it too much, but I think having one big case of that is actually super interesting. The problem here is just that it feels like a bit of a stunt because we wanted the actress back. And that's just kind of where I fall on it a little bit. But it's not all like we're spending a lot of time in this, and I'm not trying to make this sound like it's a complete train wreck because it's not by any means. But there is just that caveat of being a little distracted that they had to bring Tasha Yar back again in some way, even though it's not technically her, but it is in the sense that it's her, it's the actress. I saw the face, it played as a reveal. Like we're doing this, so. Yes, apparently being killed by the puddle doesn't keep you as dead as much as it used to, because somehow Tasha keeps rearing her face on Star Trek The Next Generation. But yeah, so hey. Elsewhere, of course, we have all the Klingon stuff, which is the main plot of the episode, really. Ultimately, the Romulans back down because the episode from Picard's perspective is that they can't intervene in the Klingon Civil War because it's an internal matter as previously established and agreed upon. But yeah, again, this is the idea that was brought up last episode, is that but if Romulans are orchestrating this to then break apart the Federation alliance with the Klingons and sort of reshape what the political landscape is in the galaxy, then it becomes less of an internal matter and more of a
we might be at war matter.
Yeah, not global. It's bigger than global. Interstellar matter. Intergalactic, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think both of those work.
Yeah, so and Picard's making his case at the start of the episode to this admiral, and he basically says, look, if we can prove that they're aiding, then we can intervene to stop them from aiding, because then it's not a Klingon matter, it's Romulans interfering. So it becomes about trying to form a blockade with a bunch of ships, like how do we spot them, bringing supplies in. They've got the Romulan warbirds that you've got the cloaking and all that. And they come up with some, we're going to fire particles from ship to ship. And sort of,
it was tachyons.
Tachyons. We're going to build a net that'll capture them. And it becomes this thing where the Romulans very quickly realize that that's what they're doing, and it becomes this kind of standoff where they can't really move. And ultimately, the Klingon Civil War ends because once they're caught towards the end of the episode trying to sneak through, they just leave their ass. Well, they're going to lose then. Whereas as we're caught, we can't interfere, because then if we keep going, then they've got a reason to retaliate because we were doing something shady. So we back up, and Gowron and his ragtag crew are victorious. I mean, that's obviously simplifying things. There's obviously some plot threads along the way. What's interesting about the character makeup of this episode is that because Picard sends a lot of the characters off to captain all these other ships that they're sort of just borrowing for this purpose. We follow Data quite a bit because Data's got a plot on the ship that he takes command of, but Riker and Geordi just kind of mostly disappear. And I only bring this up because I was noticing every time we cut back to Picard on the bridge, he was oddly kind of on his own. There was no other main cast for him to talk to. O'Brien was the only one who was there. He was kind of filling in for Worf, I think, behind him. Everyone else wasn't there because they were all given other ships to go and command. And I thought, oh, this is a bit weird.
It was a bit weird, but kind of also made sense in context.
Yeah, it wasn't a problem. It was just kind of a little bit. Oh, this is different. Like he's got no. O'Brien suddenly become the one main character other than Picard on the bridge, and it was just a little bit weird. So yeah, all that stuff's fine. Ultimately the Data stuff is the more intriguing part. Not just in even just in the plot itself, but even how it begins, which is Picard gives Riker and Geordi this assignment to go off and command the ship, and Data, almost like a good student, wonders why he's been passed up when he feels like he's qualified to also command the ship. On a short-term basis for this mission, of course. And
he's not wrong in terms of rank.
Yeah, and when he brings this up, and he almost goes into almost just giving Picard his reason for him. He's like, but I understand, sir, if you don't feel I'm ready to do this. And that's when Picard kind of cuts him off and says, this ship needs a captain. I think you'll be most suited for it. Lieutenant Commander. He's like, thank you, sir. So we have this subplot where Data takes command of this ship, and his new first officer for this short-term period is the villain from Beverly Hills Cop 3. And he is very anti-robot, is basically how I can sum this up.
I think it's interesting because he's not like against Data serving in any way.
Sure.
He's just against Data being in command, specifically.
Doesn't believe Data should be making decisions, ultimately, is kind of the idea. He is a little bit too one note in some ways, because he immediately from the get-go is just challenging every word he says. He's ignoring anything Data says, and Data has to kind of
trying to resign his position because he's like, I don't have any faith in you. Yeah,
he puts his foot down when he tries to give out orders still, and then just gives out the exact same orders. It almost plays a comedy beat because he just gave out the exact orders that he did already.
There's a moment that I feel is really lacking towards the end, kind of paying off some of this stuff here. Because this here is the first officer takes the initiative during an emergency and is kind of going, right away, this is what we'll do. They're solid decisions. And Data just kind of reprimands him. It's like, no. You don't make these orders without, consulting me first. And then, the course of the episode, Data basically does the same thing, right?
Yeah, ultimately, when the Romulans are trying to sneak through, they fire some, was it more tachyons? I don't know. The science mumbo jumbo.
Distort it.
Yeah. They tried to distort the field. So the ships were all retreating to form a new net, essentially. And Data, after receiving this order to retreat to another quadrant, or well, not quadrant, but another sector, he basically stops, tells everyone to stop because he gets an idea. And the reason why he stops so suddenly is because he knows that there's only a limited window to do this, because the trace of the particles or whatever, they're only going to be there for so long. So he quickly does some doot, and Beverly Hills Cop 3 guy, he's like, we've got an order, and the Enterprise is now asking why we're not following our order. Are you going to answer them? Are you going to answer them, Captain? What's going on? And of course, Data, we know what he's doing. We know he's about to save the day because he's had an idea, and he does some things in the computer. He reveals the Romulans. He fires a sort of, it's basically a warning shot, but it's just to decloak them, and then that's it.
It's just like really low energy, just to prove that we know where you are.
Yeah, so they see them there, and that's when they give up. And I was thinking, right, so there's a few key details to this little chunk of the episode. One is that Data just doesn't even respond to Picard. He just gets on with what he's doing because he knows it's time sensitive. You have the first officer calling him captain properly for the first time at the end of the scene. I will say that felt a little bit muted to me. I don't know if I quite got that he really respected Data at this point. It was just
begrudging respect.
Yeah, it was a little bit strange in that. But I was thinking in the moment, I was like, this was a little bit like insubordinate, the way Data was just not even telling Picard, look, sir, I've got an idea. Can you give me some? Because you see, if he just said to Picard quickly, sir, I've got an idea that might like fix this. If you give me if you trust me, give me 3 minutes.
And we know Picard trusts him a lot.
And Picard probably would give him the leeway. So when Data comes back on board the Enterprise and he comes to see Picard, I like the Data brought up, but look, I disobeyed a direct order, and I probably
I understand you need to discipline me in some way.
Yeah. And Picard very diplomatically says, far too many tragedies in our past have been justified with people blindly following orders. The part of your job is to analyze the situation and make calls. When when your commanding officer doesn't have all the information and you have more information, it's not necessarily incorrect to act accordingly. And he says he's reflected in his report that Data acted appropriately and that they did good work. Blah blah blah.
And I love all of this. I think it's just missing a beat from Data, kind of reflecting on this afterwards. Because this is kind of just the end of it. There's no acknowledgement or apology to the first officer that, when I reprimanded you earlier, you were actually right to make those calls. You were saving lives. While technically not following the rule book because you did it, without checking with the captain, he was making all the right calls.
I think what murkies it up a little bit and why Data is still kind of in the right is because he was making all these calls right in front of Data in the same room. This is obviously a case where the person giving the order is in a different ship, doesn't see what's going on. Data's in the room, he's hearing all the same things he is. He has the exact same amount of information, so he's jumping the gun by giving the orders first. I think what bothered me a little bit more on this detail is that there's something brought up at this part of the episode where part of the ship is damaged, and if they fire up the phasers or the photons or whatever, there's like 3 decks of the ship that are going to be filled with radiation, and obviously that's bad
it
traditionally.
Might affect some people's lives.
Yes, and the orders are given to do the right thing, blah blah blah. But when Data's plan at the end to find out where the Romulans are come up, this involves fire and the phasers, so this radiation is going to fill up, and the first officer understandably says, you don't care about those people's lives, you're just a robot, you don't, you're cold-hearted, or I can't remember the exact line of dialogue, but that was the gist of it. He accuses Data of not caring about lives and will sacrifice anyone to solve the mission. He's accusing him of a lack of humanity, and it felt like it was missing a moment where Data made it clear how he was avoiding the loss of lives.
Because well, he just kind of went, we'll give them anti-radiation meds afterwards, basically. And as soon as they finished, he's just like, right, go and, get the anti-radiation stuff on. And that's it. It's like, I mean, the problem is, if it was so nonchalant as that, like the way Data makes it seem.
Which I believe,
really
because it's Star
big?
Trek and it's the future. I buy that they just have this.
Right, no, I'm not questioning the ability to do this, not at all. But I'm like, if it is that simple, and it was that, let's be honest, low risk, if you can just, all right, no, everyone's fine, just like that, with just, I'll just give an order and it's sorted. Did it really matter in the first place? Was it such a big, were all these lives really at risk for him doing that?
Yeah. Because I was when it was first brought up earlier in the episode, because they set it up, it was a kind of a Chekhov's 3 decks of radiation, right? Right?
Doesn't have the same ring to it, I'll be honest.
No, it doesn't. But when they set it up earlier in the episode, I thought, this is going to have some payoff where Data is going to show how he does care about the human lives, but it never really had that beat. It just kind of was brushed aside very quickly when it came up again later. Yeah.
It's like a little bit frustrating, this plot, because I love like 90% of what it's doing. It's just missing a couple of beats at the end, I think, with Data specifically, like actually learning or proving stuff.
Yeah. And then elsewhere, of course, we have the Klingon stuff directly, which is Worf with his brother, barely winning battles, Gowron being challenged by some tip because he didn't win the first 10 minutes, so he's like, you failed the crown, and Gowron stabs him. Uh, which, and the point of this scene, of course, like a lot of the scenes with the Klingons in this episode, is to show Worf doesn't really belong here as much as he thought he did. He tries to fit in early on, because at first he's like, why are we partying with Klingons who are on the opposite side of this war? Like it's like they've all just announced a truce for the evening to get drunk, and then they're going to go back to fighting the next day. He doesn't understand. Like, these are our enemy.
Yeah, they make a point of saying, no, this is neutral space. Anyone here, there's no fighting here. We might as well just all enjoy the fact that we're here.
Yeah, they're grilling at each other in the way Klingons do, but yeah, there's not any fighting. And by the end of the scene, Worf sort of gives in and says, "All right, okay, I'll try and enjoy it." And then he gets up and has a drink, and it's fine. But it's kind of that first instinct where he's trying to fit in, but maybe he doesn't quite do so, right? And then later on, when this guy challenges Gowron, and Worf tries to intervene, but he ends up helping him stab him.
He just holds him down for Gowron to stab him easier.
It kind of shows that he's a bit more civilized in this. And what's funny to me is that this episode has a lot of just Klingon scenes. And it was making me think of Star Trek Discovery Season 1. And I'm like, first of all, this is all in English, so I'm not infuriated.
I would like to say I am very grateful that at no point did Star Trek Discovery Season 1 enter my brain while watching this episode.
It occurred to me, because I was thinking, one, it's better than all in English. Now, admittedly, there is some scenes later on where I was thinking that this Klingon stuff works to a point because we have Worf here. It works even better when Picard's there as a lens to view it through. I think the Klingons, by their nature, are so unpleasant to be around, and everything's so shouty and argumentative and like machismo that it is very hard to enjoy it on its own. And I think, and I'm not complaining about anything because I think it doesn't do it too often. And here, like I say, you've got Worf as kind of a lens. It works even better.
The whole point is to show how different Worf is, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be kind of that, almost more than usual.
Yeah, but it works really well when there's other lenses to look through, like Picard. Typically, it's been Picard who'll go down and talk to them, and sort of we'll see it from his perspective. But yeah, because there's this, the scenes where people will be brought out for trial, and Gowron's sitting there with the crazy eyes, and it's all kind of evil and unpleasant looking, and you wonder, how did the Klingon ever get into an alliance with the Federation in the first place? This feels so uncivilized by any other measurement.
I mean, the short answer to that is after a long and very bloody war.
I suppose that's true. So yeah, Worf actually gets kidnapped by the Duras sisters, one of whom wants to marry Worf so that he can become like a mentor to the young Duras kid who's going to be taking over. Because as we established back in the season 4 finale, this kid's not fit for leadership. He just happens to be this young teenage Duras,
just a little chump.
And they're trying to bring in Worf for this. There's a really erotic scene where she's like lying on top of him and sort of sniffing at him, and
I did laugh. It was just before this when they kidnapped him, because he's sitting at he's back at the bar again, and he's talking with, it might have been his brother, I can't remember exactly who it was, and they get a bit of an argument, and Worf's like, this isn't right. Again, kind of a bit of a repeat of the scene we had before, and the brother, I think, just kind of storms off. And it's literally as he storms off, the two come in to grab Worf, and there's like this weird crossover between them. It's like it's way too far. Like they were just there watching. Right, he's alone. Go now. Go, go, go. And it's just, it was a little bit jarring of just how quick the changeover was. It made me laugh.
Of course, though, ultimately he is freed by his brother, and Picard's down with everyone again. Worf is offered the right to kill the young Duras guy, because Duras, his family dishonored their family name, so he gives Worf a blade, and Worf puts it in the ground and says, "No, I'm not going to kill him." And his brother's like, "This is the Klingon way," and he's like, "Yes, but it's not my way." And it's him finally sort of acknowledging that I am not completely human, but I'm also not completely Klingon. I am something in between, and I'm discovering that I am me and not just a part of either side. So a good moment, especially when Gowron says, "Okay, Tony Todd, you can kill him instead, Dad," and he's like, "No, you give his life to me, and I've spared it, so that's it."
It's like I said, it's a solid moment. It's kind of by this point in the episode exactly what you expect. You kind of you see early on what the point they're going for is with him not belonging, and kind of he's going to make this choice at the end. But it doesn't do any of it badly, so it's hard to really complain.
Yeah, it plays well. He asks Picard permission to return to duty, and Picard, says granted. He's got a bit of a smirk and a smile on his face. It's a good moment, and it plays well. So we kind of predicted Worf would be back in the Enterprise by the end of the first episode, and I guess that's technically true. So, yeah,
not a huge surprise, is it?
No, I can't really be mad at how they handled anything. I think everything's fine. I do want to point out the first scene where they're kind of just like at the neutral ground and they're getting drunk or whatever. The Klingon from the opposite side who is arguing with them, that was a character actor that even through all the Klingon makeup I could recognize. He's the sort of actor you've probably seen in a bunch of different things.
How many shitty horror movies is he in?
Not horror. I don't think so. Anyway, let me just click on him again just to remind myself of what the more notable ones were.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean 9 times out of 10 when these come up, it's in relatively low budget horror movies, isn't it?
Yeah, it was in Wayne's World, which I definitely remember his face in. That was one that stuck out to me. But he was in an episode of Community. He's been in episodes of various things throughout the years.
I suspect I would know his face. I just didn't recognize it through the Klingon makeup.
It was the voice, and he usually has a mustache, and I think the mustache was still kind of there, or at least the Klingon mustache was over the top of it, so I could still see the...
Did they Romero Joker it and just kind of paint over the mustache?
Yeah, he was in a batch of episodes of Friends. He's a that guy. He's been in tons of stuff.
He's one of those, yeah.
But I impressed myself though because I recognized him through the Klingon makeup. I thought, oh,
yeah, it's relatively impressive. I'll give you that one.
So yeah, we had that along with Beverly Hills Cop 3 villain man,
full of guest stars. This one,
yes, Tony Todd.
Most notable.
And that's right. This guy was in Speed 2 Cruise Control. I remember him in that movie of all things. So
of course you do.
Well, it is what it is. So yeah, staple of the 90s. I guess is what I'm saying more than anything. Some newer stuff, but mostly 90s stuff. So there you go. That's pretty much the episode then. I think it's a solid episode. I think it's doing a lot of interesting stuff. It's advancing the Romulan threat, and now we have like a character who's kind of the face of it. That is a little intriguing, even with some reservations over the stunt casting of who the character is. The Worf stuff I think is well handled and doesn't betray anything that it did before. And the Data stuff is mostly really good, just with one or two beats that feel like they're kind of missing or slightly lacking.
Yeah, pretty much what I feel. Overall, though, I'd say it's a really solidly good episode because as much as we're going, the Worf stuff does what you expect. It does it all pretty well. It's always enjoyable. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this season. I'm sure it'll be good.
I'm also looking forward to this season. I'm excited to see what they do with all the various threads they've been pulling on. And the show has been, we mentioned that season 4 had like 3 or 4 like very heavily. These are the 4 main episodes of the season that tell the story that builds to the Klingon Civil War, like, and the Romulan involvement. Like that was set up throughout the season in various episodes. So I'm kind of excited to see what season 5 does, and assuming it has a similar kind of thing where there's maybe 3 or 4 main. I'll
be really interested to see if we can spot all of them as we go, because there was definitely at least one last season that we didn't realize was as integral as it was going to be at the time until we looked back and went, that was coming in there. I wonder if that happens again.
I suspect if it does happen, it'll just be the first one, because probably. once you have a pattern, it's easy to see what the thread is. But yeah, we will see. So yeah, that's Redemption 2. So I will have a glimpse ahead then at episode 2. Let's see what we're getting next time. It's called Darmok. And here's the description on IMDb. Picard must learn to communicate with a race that speaks in metaphor under a difficult set of circumstances. If the writing's on top form from this could be really entertaining.
I am familiar with Darmok through memes and ship posts. So
okay.
I'm kind of excited. See if it lives up to all the images I have seen.
Interesting. And no, next week has some guest stars too. Interesting, very interesting.
Oh,
Ashley Judd's in there. And also Paul Winfield, who I just saw in an episode of Babylon 5, but most notably he's from Terminator and, interestingly, Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. I wonder if he's playing the same character as Wrath of Khan.
it's not impossible. I'd say unlikely, but not impossible.
Not possible. So he's Captain Dathan in Next Gen. Let's see what he was in Wrath of Khan. Terrell. Doesn't sound like he's the same character, unless that's his first name.
I'm going to say probably not.
Probably not, but slightly different character, but that's okay.
Yeah, we'll forgive him.
Maybe he's playing his son or something. Like, because obviously the time could be grandson even, to be honest, given the
Could be.
the time difference.
Well, if they can do it with Tashiya, they can do it with anyone else.
Oh dear. And I don't remember I remember the character, but in the film, he might have died in the film. I can't. It's been a while now since we watched it. So
It's been a couple of years at this point.
So I mean, if people are listening to this and going, "But he died. How could it be him? You fools!" Well, I didn't remember. Okay, it's entirely possible. But hey,
Yep. And also, Tashiya died. It's not stopped them.
that's true. But apparently dying with puddle is not as effective as it used to be, so let us know what you thought of episode 1 of season 5 in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe. It is the very simple and easy way to support everything we do and help grow the channel and grow the audience, so please do that. Thank you very much. You can support us financially as well, of course, over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep all the content coming. It is the most direct way to support everything we do, so please have a look and see if you're interested. Otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and somewhere out there beyond the neutral zone, Wesley Crusher's in complete control or something.